Hello everyone, JesterBell is back. I'm still sick and my face is really puffy, but I have to get up here today to talk to you about the latest masterpiece that has come on television and the best comic book related show that I've seen in many, many years. Like this far best X-Men 97. This is just one of the best crafted shows that I've seen all year long, period. And so it's interesting. So also that I was talking a little bit about just elevating the good female creators out there, and that this show had female showrunners, and The Substance is also a film that had a female director. And so we're getting some great content lately from female creators. So I'm not feeling so bad about all the negativity that was thrown around, because I think that we're eating pretty good with this kind of stuff. But regardless, this is just an all-around great show. Is it gonna be for everyone? No, there is a lot of violence. There is a lot of adult content in this show. It is definitely not going to be everyone's cup of tea. And to say all of this, the show has not apparently been getting a lot of views. It never even broke on the originals chart on Nielsen streaming ratings. That could be because it also aired on HBO and they were split. But, as much as people make out that Agatha all along did not get a lot of views, this didn't even chart on the original show. So that's unfortunate. Not a lot of people are watching this, and I do think that part of it is the content, part of it is the character, that it's a spin-off character, a bit like Agatha, and also that we're just so far away from the Batman. And the Batman has some detractors that don't think it's the greatest thing ever, so that's interesting, and it makes me a little bit concerned. Are we going to have that same bit of momentum going into the Batman Part 2? I mean, I think that we will, because it's Batman, and Batman's still all put together, but it's a little bit of concern because I don't want everybody to abandon this universe. Now, was I wrong about saying that Batman should no longer be realistic? No, because I still do have a little bit of disdain for the amount of, disdain that the showrunners of this show had for the source material, because, just being very negative on the fantastical roots of Batman. I don't like that, and I still wish that one day we would get just a straight-up adaptation of Batman that doesn't have to be ultra-realistic. That said, as a realistic depiction of Batman, this is top-notch, and it does take inspiration and elements from the comics, like the Penguin's backstory where he murders his own brothers, at which Lauren LaFranc, who is the showrunner of the show, said that was one of the main inspirations for it. So there is comic book inspiration here, and it does very well as an ultra-realistic of that idea of someone who is just a complete monster. And there are going to be spoilers in this video, but what this show does is it kind of takes the Batman Returns version of the Penguin, which was just this grotesque monster. Sorry, I'm still sick. I'm still struggling. I'm sorry, you guys. He's just this grotesque monster, if you remember, in Batman Returns, who's like got this black ooze for blood and all this stuff, and is like eating people's noses off and all that. That's the the fantastical version of the Penguin. This show does that realistically as a Tony Soprano type character, and at the beginning, you really think that this show is going to portray him as the sympathetic villain, but it just changes your perspective so much throughout it, as all of the other characters around the Penguin become the sympathetic characters. Salvatore Maroni, because the Penguin burns his family alive, literally, and is literally just smirking about it. He becomes sympathetic because you see this is a guy who actually cared about his family, regardless of anything else that he did. Sophia Falcone becomes sympathetic because you find out what the Penguin did to her and what her father did to her. Vic is sympathetic because of his backstory, how he lost his family, how he's looking for a new mentor figure, a new father figure. He gets delusional about Oz, that is who Oz is, that this way of selling drugs, this crime, is his way of the lower end of town, the people who have been beat down. This is their way of getting jobs. This is their way of finally winning some livelihood back. So all of these other characters around Oz become sympathetic. His mother becomes sympathetic because we find out that all along she knew that Oz killed his own brothers and her other sons, and she's been living in a terror about it, even to the point where it's revealed, and one of the big reveals in the finale, that she actually hired someone. She was considering hiring this guy to take her son away and literally take him out, because she knew that her son was an out-and-out monster, and she lived in fear of him, but she ultimately couldn't go through with it. So she's basically been living with this monster for her entire life. And so what the finale hammers home is that, no, any sympathy that you had for Oz is unfounded. This is a complete monster. He has no good qualities about him. The people around him are just people that he uses. Even his mother is just somebody who he uses for his own validation and affection. And it kind of has this weird Oedipus complex around her, but it's revealed that he was willing to let her have a finger cut off. But he would rather stay in the lie that he did not kill his brothers rather than tell her the truth. And he was willing at one point to just let her get a finger cut off rather than tell the truth. So it just reveals to you that you had sympathy for Oz in the beginning, maybe. All of that is gone. He's just a monster. There's nothing to feel bad about. And what happens in the end is Penguin needs somebody to frame, and so he frames Sophia, and you think that he's going to kill her, and you don't want her to die because she's kind of the person that is trying to escape from all this, and you want her to escape, but he lets her go back to Arkham, and that is a fate worse than death in her. And she is the only other person in this show that survives, because Vic, the kid who he kind of took under his wing, who has just completely become under the throne, this is the big thing, and this is the big thing that everyone is talking about, that it made it seem like the show was going to end where Vic is still under the delusion that Oz has good qualities about him, he's completely unaware that Penguin murdered his brothers, all of this stuff that he's done, because he's been kept in the dark over the worst things. He doesn't know that he burned Salvatore's family alive. He doesn't know all of that stuff, but he is convinced that the crimes that Oz has committed are worth it in terms of selling the drugs and all that stuff, because of how it's going to bring the lower side of Gotham out. He is convinced that Oz has done the wrong things for the right reasons, and that he says Oz is like family to him. He saved him several times. And that's the big line, because then Oz says, you know the thing about family, because you know, the audience knows that he killed his own brothers and that there's nothing redeemable about this guy. And he ends up choking Vic and leaving him there. And it gets even worse, because then he very callously takes his money. He steals his wallet as he's just killed this kid who saw him as family, and he throws his driver's license in the river so that he'll just die a nobody. And that is the worst thing in the entire show. It is so uncomfortable to watch. It is so terrifying. And it's what made Colin Farrell say in interviews it was so dark that he could not believe that HBO put this show on. But I think from a writing perspective, it made the most sense, because I would have hated it if this show ended with Vic still in delusion that Penguin is this guy that he looks up to. What it ends up being is a good cautionary tale, because Vic let himself get into the thrall of this guy, this mob boss, let himself think that crime is going to pay, but it didn't in the end. It's sort of his own sort of comeuppance for falling for it, and it's terrible, but it's honestly the better way the show could have ended, because I hate it when a show ends with a misunderstanding. This show ended with Vic seeing at his dying breath who the Penguin really was, and it's so it's so tragic, but it's the only way that this show could have ended, because it's the final point of the show, you know, through all of this darkness. The only way to bring any sort of positivity out of this is to do the cautionary tale and show that on the end, the crime didn't pay. The Penguin is just wallowing in the power that he wants, and because he just is a complete sociopath who feels nothing for anyone else, he does not honor his mother's wishes when she has a stroke to let her go. She now just has to live on life support with this monster of a son forever. He takes out the only person who idolized him, and he's just this complete monster that you just hate. And so it shows like the crime didn't pay for any of it, but the Penguin is still on top and you just hate him. So what kind of good could come from this ending? What kind of positive thing could they end it on? Well, Sophia Falcone is back in Arkham, but she gets a letter from her half-sister Selina Kyle, so maybe there is still hope for her. There is somebody else in her life after she lost everything in her family who could still help her, I suppose. So we get a name drop for Selina Kyle, and as the Penguin has finally gotten everything that he's wanted, and he's just this complete irredeemable monster that you just want to punch out, we finally get the bat signal at the very end, and that leads us to the Batman Part 2, which doesn't come out for another 2 years, which is very disappointing because after all of this, I just want to see more from the Batman universe. So this has reinvigorated my love for the Batman universe, and I'm very curious to see where they are going to go forward in crafting this crime drama. Now, would I like it to be a more fantastical approach on Batman in the future? Sure, but this was just an undeniably well-crafted show, and it's given the Penguin what I think that the Dark Knight was to Heath Ledger's Joker. You know, when you just think through what Batman the Animated Series was to Mr. Freeze and Harley Quinn, when you think of the definitive versions of these characters, this is an adaptation apart from comics that has now given the Penguin and really showed, like, what an evil and interesting character he is after he has, you know, in real life, the metaphor of him being a character that was kind of brushed to the side and not seen as really great. Now he has a definitive story out there apart from comics, and that is really great. So I hope that they do more of these kinds of shows. Maybe they don't need to be as dark and adult as this one, but more shows that showcase Batman villains in the way that this does. Maybe try some different styles out there, and I can't wait to see more of what that is in the future. And I'm really glad that even if they're taking a realistic approach, that Matt Reeves seems like he really cares about these characters in these shows that they are producing. That is all I got for you guys today. Definitely a 10 out of 10 show for the Penguin. Definitely a masterpiece. Can't wait to see more Batman projects in the future. Did you watch The Penguin? What did you think of it? Let me know in the comments below. Thank you, patrons, as always, for supporting my channel. I know that these have been really quick, off-the-cuff videos, but I have some more video essays coming in the pipeline in the future. Stay tuned for that, and I will see you guys next time.